In the last section of this lecture, we're going to cover some of the other functionalists who promoted these ideas. In the early 1900s, functionalism was extremely popular in the United States. It was prominent at two universities, the University of Chicago and Columbia University. We will cover these four individuals, but there are plenty more examples in the chapter if you're interested. First, we'll start with the University of Chicago, John Dewey and James Angell. John Dewey was an American psychologist, and his work was influential in social reform and in the field of education. In 1884, he earned his PhD from Johns Hopkins University under the direction of G. Stanley Hall and a few others like Pierce. That same year, he accepted a faculty position at the University of Michigan and taught there until 1894. He was then recruited to chair the philosophy department at the University of Chicago. The university had just opened with a $1 million donation from John D. Rockefeller and the Baptist Church. One of his first tasks was to recruit other functionalists, other people who shared his similar ideas. He established the University of Chicago as a center of functionalism by doing this. In 1896, he published an article that helped promote functionalism as well as the University of Chicago. Before he published this article, many people thought that sensation, perception, and response to stimuli happened in stages, one at a time. Dewey suggested that all of these things happen at the same time. Seeing, touching, hearing, tasting happen at the same time, and we respond at the same time. I'm watching the camera and responding at the same time. My brain has adapted to allow me to talk to you and look at you or the screen at the same time. Why? To help me adapt, to help me survive, to help me adjust to a changing environment. In 1899, he served as the 8th APA president. And remember, you have to be special, you have to contribute to psychology in order to earn this accolade. He mentored the next person we'll talk about, James Angell, and passed his functionalist ideas along to all of his graduate students. James Roland Angell has an interesting biography. He was born into a very academic family. His father was a university president twice. His grandfather was a professor and university president. His brother was a professor and federal judge. His brother-in-law was a chair of a history department, and one of his cousins established 2 psychology labs at about the same time that he was active. In 1891, he earned his master's degree from the University of Michigan, where he studied with John Dewey before Dewey went to the University of Chicago. Angell earned a second master's degree from Harvard University in 1892, the next year. He studied with Hermann Ebbinghaus in Berlin, but he never finished his dissertation. In 1895, Angell follows Dewey to the University of Chicago. They researched together, they wrote books together, they formed a partnership based on their functionalist ideas. In 1905, Angell took over Dewey's position at the University of Chicago, and Dewey left for Columbia University. While Angell was the chair, he helped promote functionalism, psychology, and the experimental method. He did this by studying reaction times, imagery, and sound localization. His main goal was to identify the situations in which certain reactions happened. In 1904, he published a popular textbook. It has both structure and function in the title. That's because both were popular in the first 10 years of the 20th century. In 1906, Angel became the 15th president of the APA, and he mentored John B. Watson, the father of behaviorism. And we'll learn about Watson in a few weeks. Dewey and Angel promoted functionalism at the University of Chicago. Now let's turn our attention to Cattell and Thorndike at Columbia University. James M. Cattell was an American psychologist who worked really hard to promote psychology as a legitimate science, like biology or physics. In 1886, he earned his PhD from the University of Leipzig while working with Wilhelm Wundt. Together, he and Wundt began the formal study of intelligence. In 1889, he returned to the United States to teach at the University of Pennsylvania. He was actually born in Pennsylvania, so he was going home. He coined the term mental test in an article he published in 1890. He had administered a test battery of 10 tests to some of the students at the University of Pennsylvania. He asked them questions about their sensations, just noticeable difference, reaction time, rate of movement. He used a test that was very similar to Francis Galton's test to study individual differences in this small sample of students. In 1891, he transferred to Columbia University to chair the psychology department. While he was there, he tested incoming freshmen using the same battery he had used on the students at the University of Pennsylvania. He compared their results to their grades, to their academic performance. He predicted that his test results would be correlated with their grades, and they weren't. One of his students, Clark Whistler, failed to find any correlations between his tests and academic performance. But that's okay, because these mental tests and the statistical analyses that they used to assess correlations inspired hundreds of other researchers to do the same. And mental testing was born. He served as the fourth APA president in 1895. Flash forward a few decades and World War I begins. He opposed the war, and Columbia University fired him in 1917 for some of the things that he was saying about the war. He sued the university and won, used the money to establish the Psychological Corporation in 1921. His firing led many universities in the United States to establish what we call tenure, to protect professors' sometimes unpopular beliefs. Under the tenure model, professors cannot be fired just because they don't agree with the university or they don't agree with popular opinion. In addition to helping establish mental testing and applied psychology, he also mentored Edward L. Thorndike, who we will talk about next. Edward Lee Thorndike was an American psychologist who contributed to comparative psychology and educational psychology. In 1897, he earned his master's degree from Harvard University, where he studied with William James. In 1898, he earned his PhD from Columbia University, where he studied with Cattell. He also worked with several applied psychologists to create the Army Alpha and Army Beta tests in World War I. These tests are known today as the ASVAB. They're used to classify recruits and place them in jobs that are best suited for their talents. In 1899, he accepted a teaching position at Columbia University, where he would remain for his entire career. While he was there, he expanded his animal research to include a variety of different species, including the ones you see on this screen: primates, birds, cats, dogs, and yes, even fish. He did observe fish to try to better understand how a fish operates in its environment. He was famous for his animal studies because his work paved the way for others, but also set the standard. he had a number of different strategies that he urged researchers to use. Make sure you study more than one animal and study more than one species. Repeat the same experiment with the same animals. And finally, make sure that you document and control the learning environment. Make sure that within one experiment, all of the animals are tested in the same environment. If you test them in two different rooms, in two different boxes, that is considered a weakness of your study. So many of the standards that we know today were being promoted by Thorndike. Today, we know that behavior is affected by its consequences, but Thorndike was one of the first individuals to study this connection. In his most famous studies, he recorded cats as they tried to escape from these puzzle boxes he had built. He looked at the actions they took, the order in which they took the actions, and how long it took them between actions and how long it took them to escape from the box. There were different variations of these puzzle boxes, but they all had a latch that had to be moved in order to open the door. Here's an example on the screen of one of his puzzle boxes. You can see he places some motivator, some reinforcer outside of the cage to encourage the cat to escape. The cat tries all types of behaviors. When it hits the latch, the door opens, the cat receives the reward. This chart shows us how long it took the cat to escape on each trial. You can see as the cat experiences more trials, the time it takes to escape decreases. The cat learns somehow how to escape from these puzzle boxes. In the first 20 trials, the cat moves around in the box and accidentally hits the latch. That's how it escapes. In the next 20 trials, the cat avoids the things that don't work. Eventually, the cats, when placed in the box, go right to the latch, move it, and escape. It doesn't take very long for them to escape. Based on his puzzle box studies and his observations of the cat's behavior, he drew a few conclusions about learning. Learning occurs gradually and incrementally. It happens slowly over time, and it happens in sort of stages that build on one another. Learning also occurs through prior experience, but also through trial and accidental success. Trying different things and figuring out that some of those things we try actually work. So we keep doing those things and we stop doing the things that don't work. He also found that learning can be transferred from one situation to the next. When he took a cat that had learned to escape from one puzzle box and put it in a different puzzle box, that cat could escape faster than a cat who was brand new to the experiment. That cat had learned and remembered how to escape from the previous box, applied that learning to a new situation, a new box. Based on his studies, he created two laws of animal behavior, the law of effect and the law of exercise. Both of these laws attempt to explain the connection between stimuli and responses. These laws formed the basis for B.F. Skinner's reinforcement theory that would come years later. The law of effect says that responses that work will strengthen the connection. Responses that don't work will not strengthen the connection, and in some cases, weaken it. Over several trials, the cat's successful behaviors were stamped in, and their unsuccessful behaviors were stamped out. The law of exercise says that the connection strengthens with practice. The more we practice, the stronger the connection. Later in life, he retracted this idea, the law of exercise, because practice alone isn't enough to make this connection stronger. As proof of his influence on psychology, he was elected the 21st APA president in 1912.